This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is as best we can. Our opinions will also be shared, but never dressed up as facts. So we will tell you when it's our view. And you're entitled to yours too. Do please get involved in the discussion on X. And thank you to everybody who has been responding to my X comments recently. We had a belter of an X about Keir Starmer, where literally hundreds of people responded. Please feel free also to retweet, repost the program. It's my pleasure to provide this for you, and my honor when you choose to repost it as well. It brings up the numbers. And please subscribe and follow us on X and obviously also on YouTube. Now, I want to talk to you about something that's happened recently. Tommy Robinson, who is quite a controversial character, organized an enormous demonstration in central London. And he called it Unite the Kingdom. A lot of people asking, what does that mean? What it meant for Tommy Robinson is pushing back, fighting back against an authoritarian state, which is robbing you of your free speech. Essentially, Tommy Robinson bases his campaign primarily on that. He's not to be confused with Reform UK. Now, Reform UK is essentially a political party, and it's organized. It's got hundreds of councillors up and down the country. It's got a fistful of MPs as well, and quite a few defections, including a shadow cabinet minister who just joined Reform. So they're a political party. Tommy Robinson's outfit isn't a political party, but does work with some. The debate I had with Mark Oaten, you'll find under Live and Let Die in the archive, and also you'll find it in the back catalogue of programs we broadcast. So we're not really talking too much about the details of that tonight. We've covered it. But the question is, what does Unite the Kingdom stand for? To what extent is it right for the mainstream media, including the British Broadcasting Corporation, state-sponsored, I would point out, to imply that there was violence on the scene? In fact, there was very little violence. There was far more violence at the Notting Hill Carnival, which wasn't meant to be political at all. Meanwhile, the very large demonstration in central London invited almost no trouble at all. And I don't think anyone was found armed. Tommy Robinson had been very clear himself that he didn't want trouble at the demo because they always jump on him when that happens. In fact, there were so many people there that most people couldn't even see the speeches. Central London was crammed for pretty much the whole of Saturday. So what is this phenomenon? What does Tommy Robinson stand for? Can he unite the kingdom? Or is he overt competition for Reform UK? Well, joining me now to talk about all of this is somebody who knows all about policing, and we'll talk about that as well. That's Keith Tordoff MBE, no less. MBE. Good to see you, Keith. Thanks for joining us here. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Lembit. Thank you for inviting me on the programme.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, and not least because you tell it like it is, and your opinions always seem to be pretty reliable. First of all, the big picture here. The Metropolitan Police said that somewhere over 100,000 people attended the march. That's rubbish. It must have been somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000. Anyone who knows the topography, the geography of central London knows you couldn't possibly have crammed so many streets for miles around with 100,000 people. What's your judgment?
Absolutely. Having been involved in crowd control demonstrations, football matches, I think everybody knows even a football match with 100,000 crowd, this far outweighed that. And the amount of people there, clearly, I can't say, but 500,000, I would have.
You'd say about 500,000. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Why do the police always underestimate the number?
I think it depends on the event, whether it's underestimated or not. And I think this comes down to the political influence from above, from the College of Policing to the senior officers, to describe a particular event based on what the government of the day most probably want them to describe.
So there's a political motivation for lying about the numbers?
I think, unfortunately, the police have been politicised. I think not the officers on the ground, and obviously it's terrible that any officers ended up with injuries, assaulted. There should be no violence whatsoever. But speaking for the amount of numbers that were there, it's relatively small, but it couldn't happen at all.
Well, yeah, but as we just said, there were more injuries in the Notting Hill Carnival, which is
I think that
it's all. And
I think that shows, Lembit, sure, that shows that there is this two-tier type of message being sent out. One event where there's hundreds of people arrested, knives involved, violence involved, drugs involved, and yet we've got this march where it's a relatively small number of officers injured, which is regrettable, but there's I haven't heard any talk of knives, drugs, violence of the nature that took place at Notting Hill.
So, okay, so we're estimating somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 people. I'm pretty sure they know how many there really are. Let's settle on 400,000. That is so many more than Tommy Robinson himself had hoped were going to come. I think he was expecting about 150,000. Now, when you look at the pictures of the event and the demonstration itself, it's quite obvious this wasn't a bunch of thuggish skinheads or anything like that. This was just a bunch of people who had something to say. Here's one of the very loyal or loyalist, you might even say, pictures. A lot of patriotism there, patriotic flags. What do you think this demonstration was about?
The demonstration, I think, concerns me because I can see why people in the country are actually fed up with the way the country is being run and what is happening to the rights, the freedom of speech, posting on social media. So I can understand why people are starting to want to say something and get a message across, and this appeals that. But we're divided as a country, and I think that's really down to government and possibly why they want us to be divided so that ultimately they can control us.
So you reckon there's a control motivation? A lot of other people have said it too. And I know that Tommy Robinson, the organizer, is absolutely clear this was meant to be a march about free speech. And I was asked myself in an interview, what does that mean? What would you say that means?
I mean, it should be without fear. We should be able to discuss things, debate things, say things without being abusive, threatening, racist. But we should be able to discuss things. And I think it would appear that people who've got to contribute to what the government's agenda is are classed as being a danger to society. So, and the police are politicised, the police college, the senior officers, and that is going through the ranks. I think a lot of officers are disgruntled. I don't think that's why there's a high turnover of officers. So the training is not necessarily good enough. So the message really is a lot of the country wants to get on with their lives, but what's happening is we're always being distracted with something happening, and you seem to have to be part of a faction or a group, and yet we want to get on with our life. We don't want to be in fear. We don't want to be hearing frightening stories all the time about why we could be concerned about particular people, particular group. I think that it becomes the flags. It's nice to see flags flying. I've always enjoyed putting bunting up in my local community in the past because it shows that we're sort of a lively community, embracing the community. But it seems to be done in an orchestrated manner, and I do something like the march in London concerns me. Why it's happened, to some degree, the people behind it, the funding. And what are they trying to divide?
Before we go into those wider issues, let's just have a look at the demonstration itself. And it seems to me that the whole thing was pretty good natured. This is an international report from Boston, in fact, the United States. And they're talking about the violence. But really, the violence was confined to a tiny number of individuals. When you think about how many people were there, it was almost zero. And as I say, much bigger. Look at the number of people there. There's no way that's 100,000, because it's just gone right round the corner. Most people couldn't even get to hear Tommy Robinson on the stage. They also overran quite a lot as well. It wasn't thousands, hundreds of thousands, I think. They're far-right activists, he's called. Just a word about that phrase. That is the most overused phrase in the English language. What does it mean to be far-right?
Well, I think at one time it might have meant something, but it's bandied around that much now. It means nothing. You know, you're either left, you're right. The majority of people want to get on with their life and not be classed as part of one particular group or the other. And people clearly want to be patriotic to the country, but the government is creating problems in communities, and people are rightfully concerned about what is happening and why it's happening. And there's certainly an increase in crime, there's certainly a violent crime, sexual offences. So people, and that's why the demonstration attracted people from all walks of life very, very peacefully.
Yes, you can see here, there was a sea of St. George flags and Union Jacks. Now, I find neither flag offensive. And you were saying about the flags appearing around the country. Now, I think this can be related directly to a particular incident. A girl, I think she was 12, could be wrong, in a North England school, was part of an event where the children were invited to talk about ethnicity. So she went in a Union Jack dress, and she wasn't allowed to celebrate her Britishness. And she was deeply upset, as far as I understand. That, I think, Keith, was the trigger for the putting up of flags, because it was absolutely outrageous that a girl, an English girl in an English town and an English school, was barred from celebrating her Englishness or Britishness.
Well, clearly that's wrong. And the girl should be allowed to go into school with a Union Jack dress on if they're dressing for certain occasions within the schools. It just concerns me the way that it's being driven, and the media can do that. And is it to direct people to cause concern in communities where possibly, you know, the Union Jack is going to be looked at as a right-wing threat to them? But that's the country that the government have created. Yet we were all working together, whether, you know, communities, Muslim communities, English communities, all working together. And I think we were fairly harmonious up until the last few years. Everything seems to have come along at once, like buses come along at once, where we've got COVID comes along, restrictions come along, and the government overreach seems to come in, laws being introduced, and this whole thing seems to be momentum, and it causing problems. People naturally react, and you've got to say it's this problem reaction solution. Is the solution something that government want to introduce to control people? So they want this division and the talk of far right, left. And they're doing it not just in this country, obviously in America, Australia, Canada. It seems to be happening in the Western world.
Yes, I don't find anything threatening about the picture we see there. I find it reassuring. My parents came here as migrants. We were told to celebrate our Estonian roots, but to embrace the culture of the country that embraced us. And that's what I did. And it was effortless, and it wasn't a problem. I never felt compromised. I've never felt a need to try and exert my Estonian culture above the culture of the country. Now, a word about Tommy Robinson. Let's talk about the other issues in a minute. Tommy Robinson's a tremendously powerful and charismatic character. There he is. I interviewed him not long ago. Very, very effervescent, very fizzy, and clear-minded about what he wants. He's almost patient about the fact he's been arrested so many times, but he himself feels that he's being set up from time to time. And I'm willing to believe that could be happening because, well, A lot of people are afraid of him, and that could be the reason why it's happening. Your view about Tommy, if you have one?
Yeah, like everyone, I see the public side of it, the media portraying him in various lights. I reserve judgment to some degree because I've got concerns about how he's able to organise a lot of these things, facilitated to organise them financially, how it, most of us either have to work to earn a living. He seems to be able to do this. Is it something that the government actually wants? Need this character so we can either love, hate, or not be too bothered about? And I reserve judgment on Tommy Robinson. I appreciate it's a sort of charismatic, but I have those concerns.
Yeah, I don't know him that well, but I have to say I was very impressed with his presence. He's very awake, and he's a natural leader. There's no two ways about it. I'm a professional training manager, and I've trained people for over 40 years. You can't teach someone who isn't a leader to be a leader, but boy, you can identify it when it's there. And he is a natural leader. People want to follow him. Very powerful.
I think a certain amount of people want to follow him. I certainly wouldn't want to follow him, if I'm honest with you, Lembit. And I've got concerns, reservations about his history, his background. I would like to see somebody coming through who is charismatic, who is a leader, who has a very clear and uncomplicated background.
Dream on. I'm not sure that those are the kind of people who are wrecking the country, I think, actually. Nick Clegg, you've described Nick Clegg and Keir Starmer there. We'll talk about them later. We're going to have a quick break to look at a very interesting program called Full Throttle that's doing really well here on Unprecedented TV. After the break, let's talk more widely about some of the issues facing the country and who's going to sort them out. If you happen to like cars, it's a great show, going really, really well. Credit to the boys at the Alliance for British Driving. They're very much involved in that. But let's return to our own track. We've been talking before the break there about Tommy Robinson. I want to go wider on this now. I don't for a moment imagine that Keir Starmer could possibly fill a room or a Trafalgar Square with those sorts of supporters. Here's an example of the travails he's having.
Programme that the crisis gripping the government is like living in a horror show, and that the Prime Minister has until May's local elections at the latest to turn things round.
There's been a build-up of scandals, most recently, of course, the sacking of Peter Mandelson over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Angela Rayner's resignation. So we're asking, is it actually time for Keir Starmer to throw in the towel? Here's a reminder of his pledge to voters on day one of his government.
You have given us a clear mandate, and we will use it to deliver change, to restore service and respect to politics, end the era of noisy performance, tread more lightly on your lives, and unite our country.
Is time running out for the Prime Minister? Has he restored respect to our politics? Well, the MP, veteran MP, Diane Abbott, previously represented Labour, but you had the whip removed for the second time, didn't you?
For the same thing.
After you spoke out about your experience of racism, Diane Abbott says the Prime Minister has to turn things around by the elections in May, whilst Luke Sullivan is Keir Starmer's former political director.
We don't really need to listen to either of them because the presenters just summarised everything they go on to say. And also, I don't find Diane Abbott the most edifying or insightful person in the history of politics. But hark at what they're talking about here. The mainstream media, which has a habit of conforming and sucking up to the government for the sake of expedience, in my view, is openly questioning whether Keir Starmer should move on. What do you make of that?
I think it's all a circus, Lembit, because we're constantly distracted with nothingness, things which are actually nothing to do with policies, what should be being done for the country in terms of the economy, employment, and all the other main issues, housing. The distractions, and it's about personality. Keir Starmer's clearly a very plain character from what I see. He clearly shouldn't be a leader. And I think he's just put in there to fill a gap for a time till they're ready to move him on and put the next person in who they want in place. Now, it's not the public deciding. Where the debate in Parliament over matters, we're not hearing any of that in the media. All we're hearing about is the distractions. And there really are minor issues about personality.
And yet you could say that Keir Starmer's leadership has been characterized by doing the exact opposite of what he said in that acceptance speech, essentially acceptance speech for being prime minister. For example, this idea that we have a light touch government. There's one person here who wouldn't necessarily think so. Do you know who that is? That's Lucy Connolly.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
She was banged up in a prison for over a year for hurty words on the internet. She said some admittedly stupid things. She admits it herself. She said she was an idiot. But then she pleaded guilty and got a 31-month sentence and got released just after a year. Meanwhile, Ricky Jones, a Labour councillor who said, let's slit the throats of the hard right and get rid of them, he walked scot-free. Now, it doesn't seem to me that Lucy Connolly particularly believes that Keir Starmer's kept his promise.
Well, he clearly hasn't. But I think we're being played as well, because I think this is all to get the angst of people. Lucy Connolly gets this sentence, somebody doesn't get that sentence, and it's playing us. I'm absolutely sure that the government are doing that to keep us distracted, keep us angry, dividing us, and that's really what it's all about. It's divide and conquer, divide and rule, and there's no substance to anything that is taking place in government other than more and more likely that there'll be controls over the people as a result of what they've created.
And yet, well, yes, and to some extent you're right, because remember what we were talking about before, allegations of violence at Tommy Robinson's march, leaving aside Tommy Robinson's motivation and funders, this didn't really represent what anybody who I know who went to the march observed. But this is what was covered. It was almost as if the mainstream media had the agenda to prove that this demonstration would be bad. And that would tend to go along with what you're saying, in the sense that... Go on, sorry.
I think they were hoping possibly there would be more trouble, but there would be more instances. To be fair to the organisers, including Tommy Robinson, they asked for people not to be violent, not to wear face masks, not to the faces, etc. And I think that has worked. And the kind of people who were there, you could see every age group, every kind of nationality as well. And there were people weren't in fear as part of that protest. So in that sense, it was very well organised. But the media did definitely have an agenda, but it's the government-fed it. And certainly the mainstream media, it's a government-fed agenda, because who are the paymasters of the mainstream media? The government.
Yeah, that's the issue. And that's why they're so supplicant. Having said that, there's a great problem. Like Lucy Connolly gets put in prison, comes out something of a martyr, makes new friends. There's Nigel Farage, the man tipped to be the next prime minister, who has pretty openly said he's going to significantly cut or perhaps even eliminate the TV license fee for the BBC. So it seems to me, Keith, that all of this attempt to generate the narrative that you're describing, if that indeed is what they're trying to do, is falling on deaf ears. Actually, it's not. It's being heard, and it's driving people away from the old establishment cabal, by which I don't just mean Labour, I mean the Conservatives as well, and the also-rans in terms of votes, the Lib Dems and the Greens. So is it possible that Keir Starmer's failurous attempt with his administration to keep control through authoritarian measures is creating exactly the kind of discontent that will cast him out and possibly for a generation.
Yeah, so that's why I think we've got a very populist agenda in terms of such as reform coming through, clearly going to take over from the Conservatives, or if they're not Conservative by the time they finish with people who defect to them. And on that basis, we've got to say, has Starmer been carrying out a role, becoming the enemy of the people, doing the incompetent things, and we all turn against that, and we sweep into power people who possibly, are they going to be our saviours, or are they going to be the people who actually end up controlling people?
Are you saying that about Farage and reform?
Absolutely, because I think, you know, we've got to look at it very carefully. I can see why people are attracted to what they're saying, but as we know, when people say what they're going to do when they get into office, it doesn't necessarily follow they will deliver on that. They're connected very much with the technocrats, the big business, which I know politicians and government have to be, but that is the frightening part, because what are they going to introduce for the NHS? What are they going to introduce for banking, central banking, digital currency, the talk of digital ID? Is this all part of a propaganda agenda? And we're all driving to it because we're grasping for something in life which will bring stability.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because when Nigel Farage made his speech at the party conference, which is a pretty good speech actually, he was trying to look like the man who wouldn't do any of those things. I don't think he's in favour of digital ID. He certainly wants to throw out net zero, certainly wants to build extra runway at Heathrow. He's saying the things I want to hear. I note your comment that you think he might just be more of the same. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that we can actually sweep away, this is my opinion, viewers don't have to agree, that we can sweep away the old guard, which really offers no differentiation. They all support the war in Ukraine. They all support the woke thing. They all support the environmental scam. And Nigel Farage doesn't seem to do that. But it comes back to a question that you've already implied. Who's working for whom? Is there a possibility that the new guard will split? And ironically, that Tommy Robinson and Advance UK, if he's indeed working with Ben Habib and those people, that could actually split the reform vote. And then we end up going right back to where we started, with Tories and Labour slipping in the middle.
I think that the country wants, not the people, but certainly government, want the uniparty system to continue, whether that be Reform, Advance UK and Tommy Robinson, some kind of uniparty. And we're all really grasping and hoping that someone's going to come along and be the saviour from all the rubbish that's going on in relation to net zero and the immigration problem, or legal immigrants coming across in the dinghies. We're grasping for it, but it's almost as though they're putting that there for us to have faith in and trust in. And I don't think we can trust such as Nigel Farage, because I think Nigel Farage has shown that he moves his position time and time again. He's a skilled orator and politician who has been in Europe, you know, an MEP. And no, I don't think he will deliver on the things, but I think we all want to grasp onto that what he's promising. But do I trust what he'll do it? No, I don't.
Okay, well, that's fairly direct. Having said that, if you look at the field, it's pretty thin gruel. Kemi Badenoch, Keir Starmer, that's basically the alternative at the moment. Now, I know we're rattling along. Time's going awfully fast today. And what I'm about to talk with you might even be out of date if someone's watching this in the archive, because I believe Keir Starmer is close to an untenable position. I just want to come to this because it seems to me that Keir Starmer has recently made the biggest clangor of his career as Prime Minister. He appointed Peter Mandelson against advice, even though a lot of people knew the things Peter Mandelson had done. And then he didn't defend Peter Mandelson when he could have. He could have said, I know all this about Peter Mandelson, but I judge, regardless of his personal circumstances, he's the best man for the job. Instead, he said, I give him my full confidence. And then later on said, let's just remember this embarrassing exchange, in my view, as far as Keir Starmer is concerned.
Prime Minister, as should all of us in this House. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Poland and all our NATO allies against Putin's aggression. A NATO country has just had to defend itself against Russian drones. Now, more than ever, we need our ambassador to Washington fully focused on this issue and liaising closely with America. Does the Prime Minister have full confidence in Peter Mandelson?
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying the victims of Epstein are at the forefront of our minds. He was a despicable criminal who committed the most heinous crimes and destroyed the lives of so many women and girls. The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Well, there we go. I have confidence in him, and within a day he was gone. Now, it seems to me, Keith, whatever you may think about the demonstrations in London, whatever you may think about controlled opposition, everything else, Keir Starmer just committed a probable fatal mistake for his credibility and potentially for his entire career by saying he had full confidence then and then claiming 24 hours later that he didn't have all the facts when we've already been told he did.
Well, it's a bit like the football clubs where the chairman says, I have full confidence in my manager, and the next day they sack them. I think Keir Starmer is more of a civil servant. He's not a leader. I think he's a weak man. And I think he knew about Mandelson. This is rubbish to say that he didn't know. Mandelson, the guy who had been sacked previously twice from ministerial roles. And he's a man whose reputation was known as connecting with Epstein. And I think they just try flipping it and hoping they'll get away with it. And when it comes on top, they suddenly run away because they don't want to be associated to save their own skin. But Keir Starmer clearly knew that Mandelson was damaged goods.
Yeah. The thing is, though, he was damaged good when he was appointed. Now, my point is less what Peter Mandelson did, because it's not being suggested Peter Mandelson actually broke the law or was a paedophile. But it's the fact that Keir Starmer, instead of saying, I knew everything, I made the judgment, and you can judge me on Peter Mandelson's performance, that would have been the logical leadership thing to do. He said, no, everything's fine. And, actually, I didn't know all these things, which, frankly, any even semi-competent prime minister would have known. And he's got to go. This is the problem. This is the obvious, absolute flaw, because either he knew and he lied, which is a resignation offence, or he didn't know, in which case he's not competent for the job.
100%. He's not competent for the job. I think most of the country know that. That's why he's got such low ratings in any polls that are done. He's not recognised as a strong leader. He's recognised as somebody who changes position on things. And you certainly wouldn't want to work under him, to be quite honest, or be part of his administration, because he's incompetent, really. Not to be trusted.
That's exactly the right word. So, putting all this together, Keith, can Keir Starmer survive to 2029?
I don't think it was ever planned that it would survive. I think it was planned that it would come in, do so much damage, and then somebody will take over. That'll be Andy Burnham or West Street thing, and they will take on the reins for a while until we get a position where they can most probably bring forward what everybody will be grasping for, which will be reform, most probably. And I think we'll all get disappointed if they are elected.
And as for Conservatives are clearly a busted flush one way or another. As for reform, can they form a government?
Well, of course they can, and hopefully. They've said about bringing people who aren't politicians, people who are business people, experiencing other forms to the cabinet. But it certainly needs a couple more. All we've got is professional politicians. But what I'd like to see most of all from politicians, including Nigel Farage, is to say if we've got any conflicts of interest, where are they receiving funding from, either personally or for their offices? And they ought to wear a jacket with any sponsors on it, a bit like Formula One racing drivers, so we can recognise the ones that are getting the money from various businesses, corporations, etc. And I don't want these associations with BlackRock and Bill Gates. I want to know that we've got politicians who are serving the people, and they're doing it without fear or favour.
Thanks so much. Always good to speak with you. Are you an optimist or a pessimist?
Oh, listen, I'm a real optimist. I'm somebody who looks forward to every day and to the future, because I think we will get through, but it's more a case of everybody understanding, not listening to what the mainstream media tell us, not listening to what the politicians are telling us, seeing what they see out in the real world, look into things, read up on things in terms of how to protect the future. And we've got to, I've got children, I've got grandchildren, a grandchild, and we should be worrying about them. And a lot of these politicians think about themselves. I'd love them to start thinking about their own families. And they're doing things to people which actually are destroying people's lives. Surely they haven't gone into Parliament to do that. They went in with the right intention, but they seem to change. They seem to get compromised. Money seems to become involved, big money these days. And we need some honour, Now, whether that can come through, I don't know. But unfortunately, I don't see it in Tommy Robinson, and I don't see it in Nigel Farage.
Thanks so much. We will find out in the fullness of time how things develop, maybe sooner rather than later. I just can't see. I cannot see how Keir Starmer's going to get past May. It depends what happens in the next few weeks. That was Keith Tordoff MBE, former police officer. Have your say. Go to X at Lembit Öpik. You'll find me there. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us a great deal when you do that. Doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps us. Lots of other shows coming up and new ones too. Thanks very much to the team, but more than anything, thanks to Keith Tordoff MBE and to you for watching. I'm Lembit Öpik. That was Lembit Öpik Live.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,